Some people don't just walk into your life to love you, they come to drain you, to hollow you, to set fire to your peace while smiling in your face. By the time you see their horns, it's too late, unless you learn to spot them before they strike. They will never show their full hand when the sun is high and your spirit is steady. No, they wait. Patient as a vulture circling overhead, they bide their time until they smell the scent of your weariness in the wind. They sense it like heat on skin. They know when your laughter is a little thinner, when your eyes hold a weight you cannot hide, when your voice carries a tremor you don't even hear yourself. And in that moment, they draw closer. Not because they want to lift you, but because they know it's easier to push a soul already leaning forward. It begins with small steps. They hover when the tears haven't yet dried, when you've just lost the job, just buried the dream, just walked away from the person you thought was forever. They appear as comfort, but the comfort they give is laced with hooks. Every word has an undertone, every gesture a hidden ledger. I'll be here for you, they say, but what they mean is, now is when I begin my work. They know something about human nature. In our lowest moments, we crave safety more than truth. We cling to any hand that feels warm. And so they give you warmth, but at a price you can't see yet. They are the kind of people who will pat your back while slowly pressing you into a chair you will not be able to rise from. In the beginning, they'll make themselves indispensable. They'll call when no one else does. They'll offer to run errands, to listen, to help you figure things out. They'll say they understand you better than anyone, and maybe in that moment they do, but not because they've studied your dreams. They've studied your wounds. They know your soft spots. They know where you flinch, and oh, how they feed on it. It is not always in grand, obvious ways. Sometimes it is in the casual way they remind you of the breakup when you are finally smiling again, or how they bring up the loss you endured just when you're feeling lighter. They keep you tethered to your pain because a hurting version of you is easier to influence. A strong person can say no. A weakened person whispers maybe. They will twist empathy into a leash. You'll find yourself relying on their approval more than you realize. Every time you feel fragile, you'll think of them because they've trained you to associate them with support. But real support makes you stronger. Theirs makes you dependent. It's in the way they comfort you after reminding you of how everyone else left, in the way they position themselves as the only one who truly understands you, the only safe harbor in a world that has been cruel. It sounds like love, but it is a trap disguised as a hug. You see, a healthy person rejoices when you stand tall again. A human demon flinches at your strength because it means they lose their grip. And so if they sense you getting better, they will plant seeds of doubt. Are you sure you're ready for that? I just don't want to see you get hurt again. I mean, you've been wrong before. The words are subtle, but they hit exactly where your self-belief is tender. And so you hesitate, and they smile, because hesitation is the leash tightening. They understand timing like a predator understands when the herd is weakest. Think about it. Every story you've ever heard of betrayal has one thing in common. The attack didn't come when the person was at their strongest, but when they were already bowed under another burden. This is not coincidence. It is strategy. You might notice that their presence feels most intense in the storm. When things are good, they may fade to the background, but let trouble come knocking, and suddenly they are there, front and center, not to shield you, but to make sure they are the voice in your ear when decisions are made. They become the interpreter of your pain. They tell you what this heartbreak really means, what this failure says about you, and you start to believe their translation more than your own truth. That's the most dangerous part. when their voice becomes louder in your head than your own, and they won't stop at interpreting. They will rewrite your memories. They'll tell you how much worse things would have been without them, even if you know in your heart that's not true. They'll remind you of the day they saved you from falling apart, leaving out the part where they were also the ones who made sure you stayed broken just enough to need saving again. It's a cycle. You fall, they catch you, they weaken you, you fall again. But here's the unspoken truth they hope you never discover. They don't have the power to destroy you when you are whole. Their influence only works in the shadows, only thrives when you're exhausted, grieving, or afraid. They cannot conquer a soul that stands firmly in its own light. So they make it their mission to dim that light little by little, under the guise of caring for you. Watch for those who only show up when you are bleeding, but disappear when you are healed. Watch for those whose comfort keeps you quiet instead of brave. Watch for the ones who say they're protecting you, when really they're protecting their control over you. The ones who thrive on your weakest moments will always make sure you have more of them, because the day you stop needing them is the day they lose their power. And that, my dear, is the day they fear most. They will give to you, yes, but not the way a river gives water to the thirsty. A river does not keep a record of who drinks from it. These people, they keep score like it's their religion. Every smile, every favor, every "I'll help you" is not charity. It's a transaction. You may not see it at first. In fact, you might be touched. They're so generous, you think. They always look out for me. And in the early days, it feels good. Their kindness is warm, their timing perfect. They step in with a helping hand when you're in need and you feel grateful. You may even feel guilty for not having someone like them before. But true kindness, the kind that comes from love, freedom, and abundance, asks for nothing in return. Theirs always does. You'll know it the first time you say no to them. That's when the mask slips. Suddenly, you're reminded of everything they've done for you. After all I've done, this is how you treat me? I guess I was wrong to think you cared. Remember when no one else was there for you? Who did you call? Their kindness is never free. It's a down payment on your loyalty. They do not give to bless you. They give to bind you. They will frame themselves as the reason you survived the storm, as if without them you'd be lying in ruins. And they'll repeat it so often that you start to believe it. You'll feel indebted, even if you've paid back that debt 100 times over in your own ways. They will put themselves at the center of your victories. If you get a new job, it's because they helped you with the resume. If you met someone wonderful, it's because they encouraged you to put yourself out there. If you healed from something painful, it's because they stuck by you. In their mind, they are not just part of your story, they are the author of it. And if you ever dare to live without their constant involvement, they will act as though you are robbing them of something they rightfully own. You. It's subtle at first, the little reminders of all they've done. It starts in conversation. Remember when I lent you the money? Remember who drove you home that night? Remember who gave you advice when you were falling apart? And then it creeps into tone. A sigh here, a pause there, a sharp glance when you make a decision without their input. You'll feel it in the guilt that rises in your stomach when you think about choosing something they wouldn't approve of. What you might not notice at first is how their gifts always seem to be the kind you can't easily return or measure. Emotional labor, big dramatic sacrifices, things that can't be quantified in dollars but can be wielded as a lifelong debt. They choose these acts because they are harder to escape from. You can pay back borrowed money. But how do you repay "I stayed up all night comforting you when you cried"? How do you equal "I defended you when no one else would"? They position themselves as irreplaceable. May the one person you owe more than you can repay. It gets worse when you succeed. You'd think success would make them happy for you. But with people like this, your growth is a threat, because independence means the debt might no longer bind you. And so they'll start finding new ways to invest in you, to create fresh obligations. They'll offer to fund your project, introduce you to someone important, fix a problem you didn't even know you had, and then later they'll remind you exactly who made it possible. You'll start to notice a strange pattern. Their generosity always comes with a stage and a spotlight. If they buy you a gift, everyone will know. If they help you move, they will tell the story at every gathering. If they support you through something difficult, they will weave it into every conversation, always painting themselves as the savior. Because it's not about helping, it's about the narrative, the image, the reminder to you and to the world that you are in their debt. And if they feel you slipping away, they may resort to theatrics. Big gestures, last-minute rescues, emotional outbursts that put you in a position where you have to acknowledge them. They might even create or exaggerate a crisis just so they can step in and save you again. It's a cycle, a loop of dependence they work hard to maintain. There's a cruelty to it because it warps how you see kindness altogether. You start to believe that every act of help must come at a cost. That generosity always has strings attached. That accepting help means signing away a piece of your freedom. And so you become smaller. You stop asking for support from anyone, even the good ones, because you've been conditioned to believe that kindness is just a quieter form of control. This is exactly how they want you to feel: isolated, grateful, controlled. And if you challenge them on it, if you say, "I never asked you to do those things," or "I feel like you're holding this over my head," they will turn the conversation into a masterclass in manipulation. They'll act hurt, as if your lack of gratitude is a wound they'll never recover from. They'll question your memory of events, your intentions, your loyalty. They may even recruit others to remind you how good they've been to you. It's not about the actual help they gave, it's about the power it gave them. Because real kindness frees you. It doesn't make you feel smaller, it makes you stand taller. It doesn't trap you in gratitude, it inspires you to pass it on. But with them, the more they help, the heavier you feel. Every act of kindness becomes another thread in a web you didn't notice until you were caught. They will always know the exact value of what they've given you, even if you've long forgotten. And if you ever try to walk away, they will present you with the invisible bill they've been keeping all along. That bill isn't made of money, it's made of guilt. And guilt is one of the most expensive currencies there is. You may even find yourself doing things you don't want to do, saying yes when you want to say no, staying quiet when you should speak, just to avoid being reminded of everything they've done. You're not free. You're paying off a debt that never truly existed, at least not in the way they've framed it. And here's the cruel irony. If you try to repay them directly, if you say, "Here, let me give this back to you," they'll often refuse. Not because they're selfless, but because they know the debt is more valuable unpaid. If you repay it, the chain breaks. If it remains, they can keep you exactly where they want you, in the soft grip of obligation. It's a masterful trap, really. A trap made of smiles and open hands, but reinforced with invisible ropes, and the longer you stay, the more normal it feels. You forget that kindness can be pure. You forget that love can be given without a ledger. You forget that giving doesn't always mean taking later, until one day you remember. And when you do, you realize that the greatest gift you can give yourself is to refuse theirs. They don't just lie. Liars twist moments. These people twist your entire reality. They are not satisfied with deceiving you once. They aim to own your memory, to edit your past until it belongs to them. It begins small, almost too small to notice. You recall a conversation one way, they recall it another. You laugh it off. Memory is tricky after all, but then it happens again and again until you start to feel the ground shift under your feet. They will tell you that something happened when it didn't, or that it didn't happen when you know it did. They will deny your truth so confidently, so calmly, that you begin to question whether you saw it right, heard it right, remembered it right. And that's the first fracture. Not in your relationship with them, but in your relationship with yourself. You see, once you doubt your own perception, you lean on theirs. Once you trust their version of events more than your own, they don't just influence you, they own you. They will reframe the ugliest things they've done as if they were blessings to you. They will tell you that the cruel words you remember were never said like that. They will insist that you're too sensitive or misunderstood their tone. If you bring up the night they humiliated you, they'll claim it was just a joke and everyone laughed, even if you remember crying. And when you stand by your truth, they will turn up the heat. You're imagining things. You've been so stressed lately. Maybe you're not thinking clearly. Why do you always twist everything I say? Notice the language. It's not just about proving you wrong. It's about making you unsure of yourself. They will chip away at your trust in your own mind until you are no longer confident in what you've lived. And then they will rewrite the story. A fight becomes a misunderstanding, but somehow you are always the one who misunderstood. Their betrayal becomes something you pushed them to do. Your hurt feelings become your overreaction. What's insidious is how they mix truth with lies. They will use actual events, but rearrange them in a way that changes the meaning entirely. They will take your words out of context, attach motives you never had, and build an entirely new version of reality in which they are the reasonable one, and you are unstable, dramatic, ungrateful. This rewriting doesn't just happen in private. It seeps into how they talk about you to others. They will tell friends and family their edited version so that if you ever speak up, you'll seem like the one distorting reality. By the time you realize what's happening, they've already painted the canvas, and you're trying to scrub away paint that's already dry. It's a psychological cage, because every time you feel the urge to push back, you remember the last time you did and how exhausting it was to argue about something you know happened, only to leave the conversation doubting yourself. You start to let things go for the sake of peace. You stop correcting them when they twist your words. You avoid bringing up events they might spin against you. And in doing so, you give them more space to plant their version of reality until it becomes the only version anyone remembers. They'll even reframe your pain as an act of love. I only said that because I care. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't push you like this. You know I just want what's best for you. But love does not require you to betray your own mind. Love does not demand that you swallow your truth so someone else can feel right. The cruel genius of their method is that it's slow. They don't rip the floor out from under you in one violent motion. They move it an inch at a time. And by the time you notice you're off balance, you've been living in their version of reality for so long that the real one feels blurry. It's not just about control. It's about survival for them. Because as long as you see clearly, you can walk away. As long as you remember things as they truly happened, you can hold them accountable. So their mission is simple: make you doubt yourself enough to stay. They will use your love as leverage. They'll remind you of all the good times, but always through their filter. If you recall the way they once hurt you, They'll bury it under reminders of how they made it right. They'll tell you that everyone argues and no relationship is perfect until you start to believe that being constantly questioned, doubted, and corrected is just what life is. You might even catch yourself adopting their language, defending them to others with the same excuses they fed you, saying things like, "They didn't mean it like that," or "Maybe I did overreact." That's when you know their version of reality has seeped into your bloodstream. The saddest part, it works because you're honest, because you are capable of doubting yourself, because you are willing to examine your own flaws, because you want to be fair. They weaponize that self-awareness, turning it into a tool against you. And in moments of clarity, those brief flashes when your memory comes roaring back, you will feel the dissonance between what you know and what they've told you. You'll feel the fight between your truth and their fiction. And you'll realize it's not just about remembering events, it's about remembering yourself. Because when they rewrite reality, they're not just changing the story, they're erasing your voice from it. They want you to live in a world where they are the narrator, the historian, the judge, and the jury. Where your truth is always up for debate, but theirs is law. Where your life, as you've lived it, can be dismissed with a shake of their head and a gentle, "That's not how it happened." And once they have you there, once you're in the habit of second-guessing your own mind, you'll find yourself leaning on theirs. And that's when they have you completely. Because the most dangerous prison in the world is not made of bars. It's made of rewritten memories. They are not nourished by peace. Peace to them is a drought. It starves them. When life is calm, when the air is still, when conversations flow without edge or bite, they grow restless. They start to fidget in the quiet because quiet means they are not in control. Quiet means you can hear your own thoughts. And if you can hear your own thoughts, you might realize you don't need them. So they stir the water. They will take a perfectly ordinary day and slip in a comment that lands like a pebble in a pond. It's small, it's casual, it might even be said with a laugh, but the ripples spread. "I heard something interesting about you today. You know, so-and-so doesn't think you can handle that job. Are you sure you can trust your friends?" It's never an explosion at first. It's an ember, tossed where they know the wind will carry it. They create tension in the spaces that used to feel safe. They turn the people you love into possible suspects. They tilt your world until every step feels uncertain. If nothing dramatic is happening, they will manufacture it. They will misinterpret your words on purpose. They will bring up past wounds just when they've begun to heal. They will accidentally reveal something someone said about you, even if it was meant to stay private. They crave the look on your face when your peace cracks. Because chaos is not just entertainment for them. It is strategy. When you're in conflict, you're too busy defending yourself to notice what they're taking from you. When you're distracted by a fight, you're not noticing the quiet ways they're pulling the strings. And they are careful about the roles they play. Sometimes they are the spark, igniting the argument, stirring the pot, whispering the rumor. Other times, they are the firefighter, swooping in to calm things down, playing the hero who brings resolution to the very storm they caused. That way, they get credit for fixing the chaos they planted. You will notice that the drama seems to follow them everywhere. Different people, different places, but somehow always the same patterns. They might claim they hate conflict, but conflict clings to them like smoke to fire. And when you look closer, you see they are always near the center, even if they pretend to be on the edge. In relationships, they will pit people against each other without ever appearing to choose a side. They'll tell you one version of the story and someone else a different one, then step back and watch as the tension builds. And when the explosion happens, they will feign confusion. I don't know why everyone's so upset. The truth is, they need you to be unsettled. A person in chaos is easier to sway. A person in constant conflict doesn't have the clarity to see who the real enemy is. They know if you are constantly battling other people, you will come to see them as your only ally. And when they can't stir conflict between you and others, they'll stir it within you. They'll say things that make you question your choices, your values, your worth. They'll highlight your failures more than your victories, your weaknesses more than your strengths. They'll turn your mind into a battlefield so they can step in as the only one who understands what you're going through. They are not content with temporary chaos. They want a steady diet of it. If you patch one hole, they will poke another. If you solve one problem, they will present you with a new one. If you find yourself wondering why peace never seems to last when they're around, it's because they make sure it doesn't. They feed on the adrenaline in the air when tempers flare. They thrive when people raise their voices, when tears fall, when the room grows tense and tight. It's as if conflict gives them oxygen, and when it's gone, they feel themselves fading, and they will disguise this addiction to chaos as passion. I just care too much. I can't help that I speak my mind. I'm only saying this because I love you. But love doesn't leave you feeling drained, suspicious, or on edge. Love does not make your home feel like a war zone. They know how to twist your perception of normal. If you're with them long enough, you may begin to think this constant cycle of tension is just part of life, that all relationships are supposed to feel like a series of fires that never fully burn out. You may even mistake the rare moments of calm for happiness, when in reality they are just pauses between storms. What's dangerous is how they choose the timing of their chaos. They rarely unleash it when you're strong. They wait for moments when you're tired, overwhelmed, distracted, when you don't have the energy to question whether the fight was necessary in the first place. They know that a tired mind accepts false truths more easily. And make no mistake, their chaos has a purpose. It keeps you from seeing patterns. It keeps you from having space to reflect. It keeps you tied to them as the one constant in a world they've made unpredictable. The worst part? Sometimes they will make you believe you're the one who's causing the trouble. They'll convince you that you overreact, that you misunderstand their intentions, that you are the reason for all the tension. And because you've been living in a constant state of conflict, you may believe it. You may start apologizing for things you didn't do just to keep the water still, but stillness is not what they want. Stillness exposes them. And so, before the air can truly clear, they'll set the match again. They notice your light before you do. They see it in the way you walk into a room and make people straighten in their chairs. They hear it in the way your laugh rings out without shame. They feel it in the way others are drawn to you without you even trying. That light is not something you put on. It is something you are. And to them, it is a threat. They cannot create light of their own, so they resent those who carry it naturally. Your joy becomes a mirror reflecting their emptiness. Your confidence becomes a reminder of their insecurity. Your hope becomes proof of what they lack. They are not inspired by it. They are irritated by it, like sunlight in eyes that have lived too long in the dark. So they set about dimming you, not all at once, not so you notice. They do it in whispers, in side comments, in well-timed silences. They'll tell you your dreams are too big, not because they care about your disappointment, but because they can't stand the thought of you reaching higher than they ever could. They'll say you're too much, too loud, too passionate, too emotional, until you start believing it and shrink yourself to fit the smaller space they've made for you. When you celebrate, they'll be the one with the lukewarm smile, the forced, "That's great." When you share good news, they'll find the cloud in your clear sky. "That's nice, but are you sure you can handle the pressure?" Congrats. Let's see if it lasts. And when you're shining the brightest, when your life is in rhythm, when your steps are sure, they will find ways to throw shadows over it. They might stir conflict just to distract you from your joy. They might bring up old wounds so your heart feels heavy again. They might compare you to someone else in a way that makes you question your worth, because to them, your light is dangerous. It not only exposes their darkness to you, it exposes it to themselves, and they can't face it. They will try to convince you that your light is arrogance, that your boundaries are selfishness, that your self-respect is pride. They will twist virtues into vices until you start apologizing for the very things that make you strong. The tragedy is that you might believe them because you love them, because you trust them, because you want to think they have your best interests at heart. And so you lower your voice, dim your smile, take smaller steps. You think you are keeping the peace. What you are really doing is starving your own soul. But here is what they cannot destroy: the truth that light, once born, never truly dies. They can bury it under layers of doubt and shame, but it still burns underneath. And sometimes, despite their efforts, it flares up. You tell a story that makes everyone laugh. You step into a room and all eyes turn. You succeed at something they swore you couldn't, and they hate it. They will try to reclaim control in those moments. They might give you backhanded compliments, or change the subject, or suddenly bring up a problem that demands your attention. Anything to make sure your moment doesn't last too long. And if they can't dim you quietly, they may try to attack you openly. They may call you selfish for chasing your goals. They may say you've changed when you start setting boundaries. They may accuse you of thinking you're better than everyone else. What they won't admit is that your light scares them, not because it hurts them, but because it shows them what they could be if they had the courage. Your very existence challenges the story they tell themselves about why they stay small. And rather than rise to meet you, they try to pull you down to their level. But here is the dangerous beauty of your light. It can survive every shadow they throw. It was not given to you by their approval, and it cannot be taken away by their disapproval. The only way it fades is if you hide it yourself. And that's why they work so hard, because deep down, they know they can't extinguish it on their own. They can only convince you to put it out. They can only make you doubt that it was ever there. You'll know you're dealing with one of them when you start to feel guilty for your own joy. When you hesitate to share your successes, when you find yourself making your victories smaller so they won't feel bad, that is the sign that they've been working on you. The truth is, your light was never the problem. Their darkness is. And the more you shine, the more obvious the difference becomes, which is why they will always try to keep you just dim enough to doubt yourself, but bright enough to still draw people in. Because they can feed on the connections you make while making sure you never use them to free yourself. They don't just hate the light you carry. They fear what will happen the day you realize you don't need their approval to let it shine. They rarely walk into your life looking like danger. No, they arrive dressed as everything you've been praying for: the perfect friend, the perfect lover, the perfect confidant. They study what you long for, what you fear, what you dream about, and then they become it. They will mirror your interests so perfectly it feels like fate. If you love music, they'll know all your favorite songs. If you dream of traveling, they'll speak of the same places you've always wanted to see. If you value honesty, they'll swear they've never told a lie. Every detail they present to you is crafted, measured, placed like a tile in a beautiful mosaic, one they built not to reveal who they are, but to reflect who you are back to you. It's intoxicating at first. You'll think, finally, someone who understands me. And in those early days, you're not wrong. They do understand you. They understand you so well that they can play the exact role that will lower your guard. In public, their mask never slips. They'll charm your friends, win over your family, and collect admiration like trophies. People will say how lucky you are to have them in your life, and you'll believe it, because in the beginning, they treat you like treasure. But the mask is not who they are. It's who they know you want them to be. And once they've secured your trust, the performance changes. They will test how far they can push you without shattering the illusion. A cruel comment disguised as a joke, a promise broken but smoothed over with sweet words, a sudden withdrawal of affection followed by a grand gesture to pull you back in. These are rehearsals for the real act, the one where they drop the costume entirely and reveal the control they've been building toward. But here's the thing, they never remove the mask completely. They keep just enough of the original performance alive to make you doubt your instincts. If you confront them, they'll slip back into character, offering the charm, the warmth, the understanding that hooked you in the first place. You'll think, maybe I was overreacting, maybe I imagined the change. And that's exactly the point. The mask becomes both the weapon and the shield. What makes them so dangerous is that others rarely see what you see. Around strangers, their kindness is flawless, their charisma magnetic. They are careful never to show their cruelty in public. If you try to tell people what's really happening, you may be met with disbelief. But they're so nice. I've never seen them act that way. This isolation is part of their design. The more people believe the mask, the harder it is for you to take it off. You start to question your own reality. If everyone else sees them as good, maybe I'm the problem. Masters of disguise are skilled in timing. They know when to show you affection and when to withhold it. They know when to play the victim so you'll feel guilty, and when to play the savior so you'll feel grateful. They are actors whose stage is your life, whose lines are written from studying your every reaction. They collect your vulnerabilities like secrets in a locked chest. The things you told them in trust become tools they can use when they need to regain control. And because they still wear the mask of the person you first fell for, the friend who listened, the partner who cared, you hesitate to believe they'd ever use those secrets against you. But one day they will. And it won't be loud or obvious. It will be in the way they drop a pointed comment in a room full of people, just quiet enough that only you understand its sting. It will be in the way they remind you of a mistake from years ago, right in the middle of an argument, just to knock you off balance. And when you react, when the mask slips in your eyes but stays firmly in place for everyone else, they will point to your reaction as proof that you're too sensitive, overly emotional, or unstable. The mask doesn't just fool others, it becomes a tool to make you doubt yourself. What's most insidious is how they use that mask to buy themselves time. Whenever you start to pull away, they'll put it back on in full force. They'll shower you with kindness, make promises, talk about a bright future, and for a moment, you'll see the person you met in the beginning. You'll believe they've changed, but they haven't. They've just adjusted the costume. They survive on your hope. As long as you keep believing the mask is the truth and the cruelty is the exception, they can keep you exactly where they want you. The mask is never random, it's custom made. They become what you most want, and they hide what you most fear. And the tragedy is that by the time you realize it's all an act, you've already invested so much of your heart, your time, your trust, that walking away feels like tearing off a piece of yourself. That's why they are so dangerous. Not because they deceive in the moment, but because they make you question whether the mask was ever a mask at all. It doesn't always start with shouting, betrayal, or obvious cruelty. Sometimes the harm begins in silence, in the way your soul begins to feel heavy when they're near. You might not even notice it at first. You'll tell yourself you're just tired from work, from stress, from life. But deep down, your spirit knows when it is being drained. There's a difference between the exhaustion that comes from a long day and the exhaustion that comes from being in the presence of someone who feeds on your energy. The first kind can be healed with rest. The second lingers like a fog that follows you home and seeps into your bones. They don't have to raise their voice to make you weary. Sometimes it's in their tone, that subtle undercurrent of disapproval. Sometimes it's in the way they dismiss your excitement, pouring cold water over your joy until it flickers out. Or it's in the way they bring the conversation back to their problems, their needs, their demands, until you forget you had any of your own. With them, even the simplest interactions become transactions.